On my orders, coalition forces have begun striking selected targets of military importance to undermine Saddam Hussein's ability to wage war.
After nearly 9 years, America's war in Iraq will be over.
Thanks, Guy.
We're here to make sure that these people understand there's no ambivalence in how we feel about them. They are the definition of heroes.
It's just a big relief to be back.
The U.S. war in Iraq is quickly drawing to a close, and many of our fighting men and women will be home safe by the end of this year. But the troops returning from Iraq will face new challenges as they transition back to civilian life. We're here at Camp Parks in Dublin. It's the only place in the Bay Area that trains military men and women for combat and supportive roles. Some 40,000 soldiers train here each year. And as these young men and women prepare to serve, more than 45,000 other service members are leaving Iraq and heading home. Now, in a special program, we examine the intricate network of support for our troops here on the home front and the high cost of the Iraq War. The U.S.-led invasion began in the early morning hours of March 20th, 2003. Later that day, as President George W. Bush announced the war had begun, he vowed to disarm Iraq and free its people.
And we will accept no outcome but victory.
But from the start, the divisiveness of the war was made clear here in the Bay Area as thousands of anti-war demonstrators took to the streets. And in Washington, the Iraq War led to a showdown on Capitol Hill between Congress and the White House.
The president wants a blank check, and the Democrats will not give it to him.
As the years dragged on, Americans' opinions of the Iraq War shifted. In April 2003, 74% of the public approved of what the administration was doing. Today, 41% of Americans say it was the right thing to do. Whether you approve or disapprove of the military action, the Iraq War has produced many powerful images that are burned into our collective memory as defining moments. The toppling of the large statue of Saddam Hussein in central Baghdad symbolized the fall of the Iraqi president in April 2003. Less than a month later, President Bush declared mission accomplished.
The tyrant has fallen, and Iraq is free.
But the president's announcement was premature, as some of the worst fighting still lay ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
A momentous victory for U.S. forces came in December 2003 when U.S. troops captured Saddam Hussein in the bottom of a hole at a farmhouse near his hometown of Tikrit. But in April 2004, a new controversy erupted as photos surfaced showing U.S. military men and women torturing Iraqi prisoners at Abu Ghraib.
Their treatment does not reflect the nature of the American people. That's not the way we do things in America.
Operation Iraqi Freedom has been a long and costly war stretching nearly 9 years. During that time, 1.4 million military men and women have been called to duty. 4,485 U.S. soldiers, sailors, and Marines have died in the conflict. Another 32,226 American service members have been wounded. And it's estimated more than 100,000 Iraqi civilians have died in combat violence. By the end of this year, the U.S. will have spent nearly $806 billion on the Iraq War. One economist estimates medical costs will drive the bottom line even higher, upwards of $3 to $5 trillion. Now, as the United States prepares for the end of combat operations in Iraq, reminders of the sacrifices made there will remain in many communities across the country and here in the Bay Area. And for the thousands of veterans who are returning home, the transition back to civilian life is just beginning during this season of homecoming.
It's been really terrible. I miss him so much.
Yeah, it's finally here, but it's kind of weird because it doesn't feel like it's real.
Since the Vietnam boys, we did not get a welcome home. And we don't want to happen to them what happened to us. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Well, I'm pretty anxious to get over there. I saw my son only for 2 weeks, so it's pretty exciting.
This is the moment, then, huh?
Yes, it is.
Let's see.
Okay, now looks like him. Now looks like him. Oh, there
I'd like to hold your son again. It's been a long time.
Awesome.
That is her ring she gave me.
Did you get that?
I got that 7 months ago, and I have never taken it off. Absolutely never took it off. Oh. Whew. A lot of emotions going on right now because I've been gone way too long. Way too long.
7 months of waiting.
She's been a trooper.
Yeah.
She has been a trooper.
Yeah.
The matching dog tags.
Matching dog tags.
They said they were 25 minutes out due to traffic. After being a year and over in Iraq, it's an hour, it's just like a minute. They're almost here. I've missed 2-3 Christmases already. So I'm just looking forward to it more than anything, honestly.
Far too many did not make it home safely. Less than a week after the start of the Iraq War, the Bay Area suffered its first casualty. Marine Gunnery Sergeant Joseph Menusa was killed in an ambush on March 27, 2003. He left behind a wife and a young child. Now, nearly 9 years later, we hear from Menusa's son about the little things that keep his father's memory alive.
Seasons may pass in the Central Coast community of Santa Maria.
Oh, is that homework?
No. But the after-school routine remains the same for the Menusa family. Time with the dog, playing video games, and always with one family member noticeably absent.
I was 20 when we met, and we didn't start dating until I was 22.
So it wasn't love at first sight?
No.
But after 2 years, love blossomed. They got married and started a family, had a son, Joshua, who filled their lives with smiles and did everything like his father. But then duty called for this San Jose native who joined the Marines shortly after graduating from Silver Creek High School. A war was looming in Iraq. In March 2003, just days after shock and awe, Stacy Menusa got a shock she never expected. On March 27th, she made the unusual decision to wear her husband's wedding ring. It was the same day she found out Joseph had been shot and killed.
It was hard. It's like, how do I tell my son that his dad's no longer here? It was hard. It's a very hard day.
Her son was just 3 years old at the time, not knowing this snow trip would be one of the only memories of his father. The only other, his father's funeral.
And he said, my dad, they're taking my dad. And that was when I realized he knew exactly what was happening. He knew his dad wasn't coming home ever again.
Gunnery Sergeant Joseph Menusa was laid to rest a short distance away, remembered for his service and as a loving husband and daddy. Joseph Menusa was the first Bay Area soldier killed in Iraq. Only now, 9 years later, is his son starting to ask questions about his father. But there aren't always answers.
He said, I wish my dad was here. It was like, oh my gosh, I was like, so do I. You know, it's like, what can I say to that?
What is it that you wish most your dad was around for?
Probably still there to be by my side, help me out in tough times.
The sixth grader keeps this black and white photo of the man he calls his hero. Yet it's hard for him to talk about his father.
Knowing the memory of him being gone, it's just too hard to think about.
This was our last Christmas together.
Other meaningful photos fill the home. The last family Christmas portrait, the last photo of Joseph in Iraq, and an ominous sandstorm taken the day before he died. But for Stacy, life is less about the last, and instead a focus on the first, such as the first talk someday about a topic many parents dread.
I wish that he was here to be able to tell him about the birds and the bees and all that, because I know he doesn't want to hear it from me.
Laughter and love are common bonds in this family, which remembers Joseph through little reminders. For Josh, it's every morning at school.
At one point, we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think about my dad every time I say it.
For Stacy, it's through her son's features and mannerisms.
The greatest blessing I could ever ask for, because I get to see his dad every day, just looking at him.
What do you think that you have of your dad in you?
Well, I still think the mustache.
A boy on his way to becoming a man.
They're coming home. They survived. The war in Iraq is ending. But some are bringing the war home with them.
When you return home, that's when it all starts.
When you come back, everything just comes at you. Everyone wants to see you. All your loved ones want to be near you. They want to ask you questions. You don't want to answer questions.
Alfonso Molina enlisted in the Army at 20, the 82nd Airborne. He says he still can't talk to civilians about what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. All he saw and did keeps returning in flashbacks, night sweats, night terrors.
You're not the same when you come back.
Yet he says it was a singular purpose: keep you and your buddies alive, defeat the enemy.
If you're like Superman, you have, you're fighting for your country, for crying out loud, right? And then you come back and it's like, so what's my purpose now?
Overwhelmed by what seemed like trivial details of living, he hopped jobs, drank too much, drove too fast, lost his license.
Adrenaline junkie, yeah.
It took him 3 years after returning, seeing his battle buddy struggling too, to figure out he wasn't crazy and go to the VA for help.
It finally clicked in, I need to be careful. I'm going to hurt somebody or I'm going to hurt myself.
His purpose now at the Palo Alto VA is helping other returning warriors not to struggle with post-traumatic stress as long as he did, and to tell their families to be patient. Yet, he says, seeing all the badly injured veterans there keeps his wounds festering. His survivor's guilt never heals.
I don't know if it's just with time it's going to go away or what.
Who teaches you to live when you return? No one.
Former Staff Sergeant June Moss's husband was a soldier too. They had 2 children.
We both went to war together. When we returned, we weren't the same.
They dealt with their war trauma differently, divorced. Moss packed on pounds, lost her house, her car, her Army career on a medical discharge, originally diagnosed with depression, she says, because she was a woman, later changed to PTSD.
I took a razor to my wrist.
Now she's thankful the suicide attempt forced her to go to the VA to get help for the war still raging in her head.
I know exactly how somebody else feels that's coming home. I know, I've been there, lived it, I'm still living it.
Do you still go for counseling?
Oh, God, weekly. I'm in counseling weekly.
But half of combat veterans who need mental health care don't ask for it. At the Palo Alto VA, Anna Coulter goes out to try to find them.
We want to take care of them because they have done so much for our country.
All right, call me if you need me.
Will do.
All right.
June Moss and Alfonso Molino now are helping other returning troops with invisible wounds finally win the war here at home.
Injured veterans back from Iraq and Afghanistan count on medical care from the U.S. government. But some say what's missing is the health and training these wounded men and women need to restart their lives. Ken Pritchett has the story of a Bay Area organization that's changing that one veteran at a time.
Ryan Sykes is making progress. If it's not physical therapy, then it's taking Spanish classes at Diablo Valley College.
The bottom.
That's right. The chanclas at the bottom, too.
Or he's doing what he can to care for his child. In short, Ryan Sykes is working every day to get his life back, to recover after a terrible motorcycle accident in Afghanistan.
When on my way back to the base, I crashed. So I laid out there for about 5 hours.
Petty Officer First Class Sykes served in Navy Special Warfare with 2 tours in Iraq and 5 in Afghanistan. He earned the Bronze Star, but his military career ended in 2008 with the accident that left him with a traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, I'm getting better. Brain injuries, tough thing. It takes constant training.
Ryan received the best of medical care from the VA, but how can he rebuild his life, rejoin society, and the workforce? Well, he has a team for that, and they work for a San Ramon organization called the Sentinels of Freedom.
Coming back from the war zone and coming back into the community, the overwhelming feeling of now what's next, or how do I fit back in?
Many veterans like Ryan returned from war with tuition money from the GI Bill, but some wounded veterans cannot take advantage of that money if they cannot get to class. The Sentinels make sure wounded veterans have what they need in life to attend college. Ryan started with a Spanish class.
He's doing great, actually. He's one of my favorite students. He's a good student. He's a hard worker.
The organization helped him get a ramp-equipped van and assisted him with housing.
With the Sentinels, they take care of a lot of things, so it gives me the free time to focus on my rehab.
And that is the main purpose of the Sentinels, to provide aid that eases an injured veteran's transition back into the community.
My son, Sergeant Eric Serrano, United States Marine Corps, he is currently home right now. He served 2 tours in Iraq. He's a Marine at heart. Well, the hardest thing is to have your son go away to a war zone. It's difficult. You don't know that he's going to come back safe and sound, and even when they do come back, there's wounds that are you don't see with the naked eye. My son is home. Yeah, he's located at base here in San Jose. Yeah, so I'm one of the lucky ones.
The jobless rate has dropped a bit in the past year, but among returning veterans, it's increasing. Since the Iraq War began in 2003, the unemployment rate for vets has climbed, reaching more than 12% in the past year. Just last month, President Obama signed the Hire Heroes Act. It provides tax breaks to businesses that hire unemployed veterans, a benefit for both the employer and the employee.
On this rainy San Francisco morning, these workers couldn't climb onto the roof to install solar panels. They did, however,
that's a good panel right there,
check for damaged goods. This Marine, who now lives in San Francisco, is working as a volunteer on this job site in the Bayview.
Recently, I just graduated from the Swords and Plowshares solar design and installation program.
Swords to Plowshares, a nonprofit, helps hundreds of veterans find work by connecting them with local businesses.
A lot of them want to hire veterans. They want to make an effort to hire vets, but they don't know where to find veterans.
to actually come out and work side by side from some guys that actually went out and defended the country. I mean, I'm feeling proud to be here.
Businesses can soon take advantage of tax credits for hiring unemployed vets. Credits worth anywhere from $2,000 to nearly $6,000. A pivotal move with the unemployment rate for vets from Iraq and Afghanistan at more than 12%.
Another Bay Area company hiring veterans, Tesla. We've been told the skill sets of many military men and women are compatible with building components for their electric vehicles.
Involved with avionics in the Marines, James Black served 2 tours in Afghanistan and in Iraq. After coming home, he found it difficult finding stable ground on American soil.
Unemployment actually was very rough going through.
Now James is taking the new Toyota RAV4 from a prototype and easing it into production.
While the United States will have a limited presence in Iraq, tens of thousands of U.S. troops remain in Afghanistan, some of whom have 4 legs instead of 2. About 600 U.S. military dogs were sent to the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. Ken Wayne introduces us to some of the Bay Area's war dogs.
Where is it?
They have battled side by side with American soldiers since the Civil War, and yet military dogs are still a part of America's modern fighting force.
Just like our aircraft or just like our guns, we're not going anywhere without the dogs.
At Travis Air Force Base, 9 dogs are rotated through deployments to the Middle East.
Our explosive detection dogs are trained to find anything that goes boom.
Staff Sergeant Joshua Hayes is getting ready to deploy with Britt, a 4-year-old Belgian Malinois.
I would trust him with my life. He really is amazing when it comes to detection.
Down. Crawl. The training at Travis is just the beginning. Before heading to the combat zone, the dogs go through live fire training in Nevada to get them used to the sights and sounds of combat. It also determines which dogs are good enough to be sent to battle. These dogs are searching for explosives along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Their noses are 10,000 times more sensitive than ours. They're trained to find what's called a pure odor.
So if a dog can find one type of, pure odor, he can probably find 50 offshoots of that odor. So the actual number of explosives or actual type or makeup of explosives that they can find is really undetermined. It's limitless.
Dogs are also used with special forces, even leaping out of aircraft. It's said the Navy SEAL team that killed Osama bin Laden used a dog.
The dog, he's on a mission, he knows what he's supposed to do, and he goes and does it.
At times, the dogs pay a price.
A bad guy jumped over a fence. He jumped over the fence to follow him, got his foot caught in the fence, and didn't go well from there. So they had to amputate, and he's been at home with me ever since.
In the Vietnam War, dogs were considered equipment, and some were left behind. Not anymore.
It's hard to deal with, especially as attached, as we get to the dogs, but when the time comes, we honor them as best we can.
Military dogs are now given formal funerals, no longer excess property, but valued members of the military family.
Gabriel right now is a grumpy old man.
13-year-old Gabe has done his duty. His nose is still strong, but his eyes are fading. After several deployments, his career of sniffing out explosives to protect his human counterparts is over.
I went to the vet and we talked and said he's done. There's no way we could work him. I couldn't take myself to keep working him.
General Douglas MacArthur once said, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away." But not old military dogs.
The bond that's established, it goes beyond just being a member of the family. He's your partner, and he's your partner for life.
Airman Muhammad is searching for housing where he can keep Gabe, so this four-legged war veteran can spend his remaining days in peace.
For U.S. troops, the legacy of military service goes beyond their courage in combat. It can also be found on the home front in their will to overcome obstacles and hardships as they transition back to civilian life. And while life after military service is different for every person, there are a wide range of services and resources available to make that transition as smooth as possible. If you want more information on the programs we've profiled and other military resources, just go to ktvu.com. From Camp Parks here in Dublin, I'm Julie Hayner. Thank you for joining us.